There is this guy who is weak as a kitten and thick as 2 planks. There is this gal who is purple and just kind of sits there. I feel like there is some kind of deal with them, so join me in this video as I find out what the deal is. We can meet Thiollier inside of the ultimate networking function, the Realm of Shadow. There is a vast array of like-minded Miquella enthusiasts and professionals to be met here. However, they are all vapid and soulless. They don't understand what it truly means to stand Miquella. I don't either, but I know someone who does, and it is just past Castle Ensis where we can meet Thiollier.
I too am tarnished, and here on kindly Miquella's account.
Apparently he is also part of this Miquella Stan networking function.
I'm as weak as a kitten and thick as 2 planks.
Mate, what? Is he flirting with me? This happens to me a lot. I'm sure you can tell by looking at my face. He sells poisons and perfumes, which sounds like the title of an emo record. Anyway, in order to get someone's LinkedIn, a good strategy is to give them a strange black liquid. You have no idea how many times I have done this in real life to lock down a job interview. In this case, Moore will tell us Thiollier asked him to find some of this liquid, and he will give it to us. Because we have a trusting face. Thiollier is absolutely ecstatic with our delivery.
I'll mix up something special. For you, it will grant the sweetest slumber for all eternity.
Yes, he just gave us the drink that kills you instantly. I don't know what he meant by this, so I think I'll give him some space. In the meantime, we could take the drink that kills you instantly, feed it to the dragon priestess at night, ruin her life, and then for some reason she will pledge her undying loyalty to us. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's a whole saga that I conveniently detail in another one of my videos. However, instead of just being straight up evil, we could instead check out the sunny Cerulean Coast. This place looks pretty nice. Like every other cool looking zone in a From Software game, it has a very dramatic entrance where you come over this small hill and see it all before you as your camera's auto center tilts down while you descend towards it. I always enjoy little moments like this in From Software games where they manage to guide the camera in a cinematic way despite the player still having complete control over it. The most prominent feature here has to be the giant coffins. I feel like you can make anything really cool and mysterious if you just make it massive. The one exception being your mother, of course. This also applies to the Baby Yoda enemies, those small demi-human swordsmen. On their own they are cool, but they're not mysterious. However, on a hidden piece of coast, you can find a group of demi-humans near a coffin, along with their queen, Demi-Human Queen Marigga. And believe it or not, she is mysterious. She is a reused version of the Demi-Human Queen boss from the base game, but it's probably the most interesting version of it due to 2 things. The first is its name, Marigga. This is obviously a demi-human take on the name Marigga, which indicates that this demi-human queen is most likely the one above them all. But it also gets more interesting when you consider the names of the other demi-human queens from the base game. They were Margot, Maggie, and Gillica, which map to Morgott, Moog, and Godwyn respectively. The demi-humans have constructed their own weird perversion of the Golden Order. They have taken its labels without really knowing what they mean. It comes across as quite primitive, but it turns out that the demi-humans might know a lot more than we realize. The second interesting thing about Marigga is the item it drops, the star-lined sword. This is the weapon they give to their baby Yodas. The description states, when bestowed with this weapon by their queen, the swordsmen swear to find the truth that lies at the end of the procession of stars. This small line reveals quite a lot about the demi-humans. They are aware of the stars and their connection to magic, but more importantly, they understand that there is some force behind it all. We know this to be the outer gods. And when you consider that we find Marigga on the beach, it seems like they came to the Realm of Shadow to discover the truth behind the 2 fingers fingers and the greater will, without even really understanding what they are. And it's not like they were wrong to come here. You find Miquella in the realm of shadow. We got all of our answers about the true nature of the greater will from that questline. Marigga came to the right place. Apparently they understand far more about the true nature of the world than any of the scholars from the lands between. Marigga didn't even need to watch any lore videos to understand all of this. The demi-humans are members of an elite think tank. They are the most intelligent beings in Elden Ring. They are also literal cavemen. Marigga left the realm of shadow as a slave to the greater will, while Marigga arrived free from the chains of civilization, seeking to challenge the very gods themselves. Marigga is simply built different. That's canon. It's in the lore. Anyway, you can just murder Marigga and all of her followers with no consequences, completely destroying their fledgling culture and sending them back to the Stone Age. There isn't much more to do in the Cerulean Coast. We do get to crawl over some of the stone coffins, but we don't really get to find out what's inside. That comes later. We can mega troll like the goat Anthony though, but the main goal here is this hole at the end of a peninsula. You descend down it. It's very dark. You come across these strange slimes. You just know you're about to stumble across a cool new location. It's so exciting. Oh wait, never mind. It's locked. Well, more specifically, Miquella is stopping us through mind control. I swear man, this is the last time I participate in a CIA-sponsored psychedelic experiment at a university. Okay, now that we know we are Miquella's Manchurian candidate, how can we stop this? Well, as it turns out, you just kind of go to a place. Miquella has been slowing off every part of himself in order to become a god. That's what those crosses are. And naturally, at some point, Miquella has to give up his rune, the one that gives him the power of mind control. And the trigger for him doing this is when you enter the Shadow Keep through the main entrance, or when you head to the guy who really likes fingers through Bonnie Village. Now this could just be a contrivance of game design, but to me, it makes way more sense that Miquella is watching us on CCTV cameras and relinquishes the mind control just as we are about to approach Mattia or Mesmer, because he realizes that we are just driven by an intense bloodlust that causes us to seek out things that are bigger than us and kill them. And after the dust settles and we are tried for the various war crimes we have committed in our journey, he could potentially be held liable, as we are his pet Manchurian candidate. That's canon. It's in the lore. Miquella breaking the rune also frees the rest of the NPCs, including our good friend Thiollier. I know he is our friend because, as you remember, he gave us a gift, the juice that kills you instantly. He is surprised we don't act differently with the power of the rune removed. Thiollier has no idea that the only thing in our brain is hype moments and aura. Thiollier remembers that he is originally a follower of St Trina.
Of St Trina. Her visage. Her sen.
Her? Does he know?
Would kindly Miquella chasten me for falling for St Trina, while knowing that she was the discarded half.
This guy really likes St Trina, like a lot.
I would sacrifice everything just to gaze upon her one last time.
Hey, I think we've all been there, man, but this is getting really depressing. At this point in the conversation, I'm really hoping he doesn't reach for the juice that kills you instantly.
I had something I wish to tell you. I'm heading south.
Oh, that's a relief, man. For a moment there, I thought I might need to bust out the Narcan. It also turns out that this shore to the south is where Miquella locked us out of, and if we head back there, now that the rune is broken, we can head inside. This initial view always gets me. It looks so painterly. Why does that coffin look so good? I feel like it has to be post-processing or something. Anyway, we didn't come here to thirst after leaking coffins. We came here to climb them. The first part of this fissure is inhabited by some League of Legends players. At first I assumed they are here because they seem like the sort to live in caves, but we know that they drink blood, and I guess you could describe the putrescence that leaks out of coffins as blood adjacent. So maybe these blood fiends have a more refined palate compared to the rest, and seek out the top shelf stuff that has been finely aged in these stone coffins. That very same putrescence is what the slimes are made out of. of. These aren't your ordinary BP oil spills. They are the congealed remains of lives long past, which is very disgusting. But again, apparently it tastes good according to those blood fiends. And you know what? Good for them. There is a massive blob of this stuff, just blobbing around. They can have it. But outside of that blob, there really isn't much going on in this zone. We don't actually get any answers about these coffins at this stage. That comes later, but we can get a peek inside. Near the second side of grace, you can fall down and enter a broken coffin, where you just find a dead guy with an item, and that's it. The item isn't even anything enlightening. Cryptic as always, Miyazaki. There is also a seemingly random ghost of a misbegotten here, which tragically self-terminates, probably because it has a tragic prepare-to-cry backstory that is implied through some things we learn later. At the end of this area, you can find a bunch of animals hanging out, and they are all sleeping. You could easily farm this for like 20 cute animal videos on Twitter, or some thin beast bones. I feel like the purpose of this is to show that even animals are brought towards the purity of St Trina. They are these innocent creatures sleeping in the middle of this wretched place, surrounded by blood fiends, skeletons, and putrescence that taste surprisingly good. Their presence is purely symbolic, but it helps shift the atmosphere of the zone, from dungeon action to something more somber and reflective. To progress, you have to jump off a place that actually looks really inviting to jump off. It's like when you have had a mediocre week and you see a really appealing looking cliff. You might not be at the point where you want to utilize it, but it's definitely making your shortlist. We descend past the falling putrescence, landing in a pool of putrescence, and we are rapidly approached by a knight who, believe it or not, is also putrescent. This boss fight has a pretty cool design. It's quite unique. I feel like it would have made sense to have some enemies in the previous area that kind of fit a similar visual profile to sort of foreground the placement of this design at the end. The horse ridden by the knight has its rear trail off into corpse goo, so it has no back legs. But what I find interesting about the design is that the knight itself kind of has horse legs. Its feet are more like hooves, and its lower body tapers down and resembles that of a horse. Its legs even come out from the underside of the creature rather than the bottom. Maybe that's how it jumps so high. It's like a centaur from some trashy fantasy romance novel on Amazon, but if said centaur was made out of millennia-old dead guys and horses, instead of the hopes and dreams of lonely millennial women. We can summon Thiollier for this fight. He kind of just spreads various fragrances around. I mean, sure, they smell nice, I guess, and this putrescent corpse juice probably smells horrible, but at a certain point the perfumes just kind of choke you. It is truly death by a European man. Once the knight chokes on the latest fragrance, you can enter the Garden of Deep Purple. Yeah, not that deep purple, but rather the juice that kills you instantly. We can find Thiollier hanging out here along with St Trina.
I'm drifting off in the sea of her poison.
He's kind of out of it a bit, as he is already under the effects of St Trina's poison, tweaking off that deep purple. He warns us and says that we can't handle the juice that kills us instantly. Yeah, I know, mate. It's literally called the juice that kills you instantly. Anyway, we can walk over to St Trina and drink the juice that kills you instantly. This kills us instantly. At first, nothing special happens, but we can do it again and again and again, until we are literally tweaking off that deep purple. Suddenly we will hear St Trina's voice.
Miquella, stop. God it would be Miquella's prison. You must kill Miquella.
Okay. We were going to kill him anyway, because we kill everyone, no matter how prepared to cry their backstory is. But sure, let's just call it a favor for St Trina, then we can get a reward while we are at it. Unfortunately for Thiollier, St Trina has not spoken to him at all. It's probably because we are simply the better tweaker. We can tell him what we heard.
Thank you not to lie to me. I am the chosen, not you. Why would you hear her voice when I cannot? If you should utter these cruel untruths to me again, I won't be held responsible for my actions.
Okay, mate, whatever you say. We can just repeat ourselves to annoy him. This makes him really upset, so he decides to throw down purple style and jumps us outside the garden. However, like I said earlier, he is a perfume merchant. All you have to worry about is getting his signature stench on you. He doesn't even use the juice that kills you instantly against us. He really is
weak as a kitten and thick as 2 planks.
Thiollier is just kind of half passed out on the ground now. Partially because we beat the life out of him, and partially because he tweaked way too hard off that deep purple. What a tragic end for such a beautiful soul. This is the true prepare to cry. Also, purely for fun, we can rub it in his face that St Trina spoke to us once more. This time it seems he believes us. He then just spends the rest of the DLC laying there on the ground in a coma, just completely dozing. Until the end, that is. After you do that whole thing where you fight the snake guy and fight the bug lady, you arrive at near a limb, and near the top of it you get jumped by your colleagues. Yes, the very same people you networked with, the ones you added to your LinkedIn, have betrayed you because you betrayed them. We could just leave a negative Glassdoor review. We're tarnished, guys. Of course we kill whatever is standing in front of us at any given moment. Thiollier will even join us for the fight. He believes us completely and wants us to execute St Trina's final wish. He is even sad about fighting more. That is the true prepare to cry. He will of course help us in the fight against Miquella, but he doesn't have much to say this time around. After we win and successfully execute St Trina's will, he fortunately tragically dies so we can steal his fit. Now we are truly thick as 2 kittens and weak as a plank, or whatever it was this guy said. If we return to St Trina's Garden of Juice, we can find her just kind of dead. This is a common symptom that occurs when your body is cut in half. St Trina has left us one final gift, a kawaii hat. The description reads, "Despite the velvety purple hue, the flower is in no way poisonous. It merely blooms in quietude." Wow, so profound. I murdered countless gods and all I got was this stylish headpiece. Okay, I know that sounds underwhelming, but we also gained something of immeasurable worth. More knowledge about the lore of St Trina and the giant coffins. Okay, I know that also sounds underwhelming, but it's actually really cool, and dare I say it, thematic. In the base game, our knowledge of St Trina was rather limited. We knew that she was some kind of god of sleep and that she had a rather obscure following. We knew that her followers would spread her teachings by literally shooting randoms with sleep arrows. Yeah, 1 minute you slump over at the bus stop, then the next you wake up in a cult. It's kind of an unconventional belief system. There wasn't much more information about St Trina though. However, there were a series of hints as to her true identity. For example, the 3rd Fevor's cookbook was written by a follower of St Trina, but granted the recipe for the bewitching branch, an item associated with Miquella. The items Trina's lily and Miquella's lily also served as mirrors of each other. There were a few more hints, but basically if you read between the lines, it was clear that St Trina was some kind of assumed identity of Miquella, and it is only in the DLC where we really learn about the truth. St Trina is the part of Miquella that is his compassion. It's the part that influenced him to start this whole journey in the first place. St Trina represents the Miquella that took in the Albinaurics, the Misbegotten, and all the other beings that needed help by constructing the Erdtree. It also represents the part of Miquella that went around headshotting randoms with sleep arrows because it makes them feel good and at peace or something. But more importantly, Miquella most likely adopted the name St Trina because the beings he sought to help were persecuted by the Golden Order, which effectively represents the will of his mother Marigga and gods like himself. So if he openly helped them as a god, that could kickstart like 100 YouTube drama videos. It would have been messy. So St Trina allowed him to do it far more covertly, and For a time, things were good. He chilled out with millennia in the Erdtree, helping random diseased creatures, growing the tree to become a safe haven for all of the oppressed. However, unfortunately, millennia is literally the embodiment of scarlet rot. Scarlet rot is like the juice that kills you instantly, but instead if it killed you slowly. This is naturally not conducive to the growth of a tree, so Miquella's whole safe haven fell apart, so he changed his plans. If he could not usher in an age of compassion by growing a tree in the middle of nowhere, he would do it instead by creating his own order and crowning himself its god. Now the problem with this is that Miquella himself is a demigod of the Golden Order, specifically an Empyrean, which means he can inherit Marigga's role as the god of the lands between. However, if he did so, he would be under the thumb of the two fingers, or I guess under the finger. Miquella would effectively be a puppet of the greater will, which would limit him a lot as a god, making it difficult for him to create the age of compassion he envisioned. So he required a different kind of divinity, one that would not be tainted by the Golden Order. This could be found at the Gate of Divinity in the Realm of Shadow. However, even if his new divinity came from outside of the greater will, Miquella was still an Empyrean, which means he perceived himself as being tainted by the old order. So much like how Rani discarded her Empyrean body in order to usher in her Age of Stars, Miquella also sought to discard these aspects of himself, so he could usher in an age of pure compassion, without any influence from what came before. We can find the parts of himself that he discarded at the various crosses throughout our journey. These include things like his arm or his eye, but in the Stone Coffin Fissure we can find this one. Yeah, he discarded his love. Mate, that's like the one thing you are not supposed to discard, or so I heard. And it just so happens in this place where he abandoned his love, we can find St Trina, who is effectively a manifestation of his discarded love and compassion, rotting at the bottom of a giant corpse pit. Okay, I just want to take a minute to point out how extra and dramatic Miquella was being here. He could have just dumped St Trina anywhere, like on a nice beach or something, but no, he just had to chuck her in the giant disgusting death pit. Miquella really wanted to bury this female part of himself.
Come across like a woke asshole, but like, dude, women have it hard.
To me, the extent he went to in order to hide and bury the compassionate part of himself points to Miquella's true nature. We know that the ability he gets from his rune is effectively mind control. That's not a nice thing to do to someone. Throughout the game, it's implied that his potential age of compassion would be an enforced one, through the power of Radahn's strength and through Miquella's powers of domination. That's why he threw St Trina away into the deepest and darkest place. It's because that little part of him knew that such an age would be a disaster. It would be an age of compassion where nobody has any free will, an age of stagnation. So St Trina sits alone, rotting in a pit, only to be discovered by us, and a guy who is weak as a kitten and thick as two planks, where she then tasks us to kill Miquella. Now at first you might assume St Trina only wants us to do this because Miquella literally threw them into a corpse pit. But it turns out St Trina, in her infinite compassion, wants to help Miquella by killing him, kind of like how Thiollier helped us, by giving us the juice that kills us instantly. St Trina recognizes that Miquella would be a caged divinity, unable to bring about a true age of compassion through taking away free will, and that it is likely he would make everything worse. So we stop Miquella, and upon his death, his other half also perishes, and there St Trina rests forever, alone and forgotten. That is the true prepare to cry. Now of course there is one wrinkle in St Trina's plan. Sure, now Miquella can't bring about his flawed age of compassion. Great job St Trina, but if we become Elden Lord, we can literally just bring about an age of dung. Like it's a poo world. I guess St Trina assumed we wouldn't make the world a poo world, but yeah, we did. The world is poo now. Great job, St Trina. You really backed the right horse. So now that we know St Trina's true identity and her motivations for stopping Miquella, what's the deal with those giant coffins? Well, obviously that sludge is dead guy juice. This is different to the juice that kills you instantly. Basically, the dead guys have been in the coffins for so long that their remains decomposed into this congealed sludge, which upon dripping out formed those slimes, and the Putrescent Knight. So the Putrescent Knight isn't even a guy, he is guys, plural. But the question is, why exactly do they serve St Trina, and where do they come from? Well, to answer the second question, it doesn't matter. All we know is they came from a faraway land with a different culture. They appear to load their dead into these coffins and send them off with a funerary offering of a grave glovewort. However, something important can be gleaned from the congealed putrescence description. The putrescence is what remains of the impure lives kept within the stone coffins, so we can assume that the dead guys that comprise the dead guy juice were not wanted by their original culture. They were denied their traditional funerary practices and sent off in these coffins because they were seen as impure for whatever reason, and this is why they appear to protect St Trina. We know that St Trina protects those who were cast out by the Golden Order, all of the downtrodden and oppressed souls, so it naturally makes sense that St Trina would also soothe these impure souls through her powers of sleep. By having these impure souls form a guardian for St Trina, it reinforces the transmutation of death theme inherent to St Trina's power of eternal sleep, as she transmutes the pain of living into the peace of sleep. Their impurity is transmuted into an honorable guardian knight. That is the true prepare to cry. This also explains why the blood fiends in Stone Coffin Fissure can apply the sleep status effect. They too are comforted by St Trina. It also explains the random misbegotten ghost. We know that St Trina helped the misbegotten, so it is here to defend St Trina. This is why questions like the origin of the coffins don't really need to be answered. All these elements together serve to illustrate the compassion of St Trina, and how much Miquella has given up by throwing her into a deep pit. So what is the deal with St Trina? She's like a maiden that soothes the pain of the diseased and decayed in a giant death pit. Wait a second, isn't that demons' souls? Isn't that literally just a maiden Astraea? Yeah, pretty much, but instead if she gave you the juice that kills you instantly. If you enjoyed this video, you should subscribe to my channel. It would look great on your resume.